Welcome to Narrative Crusades Was It Any Good series, where we explore the Horus Heresy books. We've read them all before, we are going to read them again, sometimes 17 years later. Today, we are going to begin with Horus Rising. Each episode will start with an introduction to the book, the author, it will have a spoiler-free review, and then a shorter reminiscence, which will include spoilers and our favourite bits. The Horus Heresy series started in 2006. There are 54 books in the main series, plus 18 in the Siege of Terror series, and a Primarch series, plus I believe a number of other audiobooks as well. The last book in the Siege of Terror series is set to be released next year, so it only seems fitting to go through them all again. Some of the best and most detailed lore in the 40k universe is in these books, lore for each of the Primarchs, each containing never seen before lore at the time on events such as Istvan, Prospero, and Peter Garman, to name but a few. It really does go into detail on pretty much everything. In fact, it sets the scene and the canon for most of the 40k universe, even why the Tyranids arrive. It includes information for each of the Primarchs and each of their legions as well, and we are going to review them all. So, Horus Rising was the first book that ever explored the heresy in any detail. I don't remember reading anything at all about the heresy before this, let alone a book set at the time, let alone containing an actual living Primarch as the focus. All of the bad ones were asleep or sulking at this point as well. It was given to Dan Abnett to write. He is an incredibly accomplished writer. Have a look at his wiki and you'll realise that it goes way beyond the 40k universe. He'd written Gaunt's Ghost by this point and the Eisenhorn series as well, some of the most popular books in the 40k universe, and if rumours are to be believed, possibly also going to be one of the first video series as well. He was somewhat of a safe hands to give the book to, so no surprise, and a good deal of circular karma, I think, that he is writing the last two books. I feel that's somewhat deserved. So, no surprise, the book features Horus heavily, although it's not from Horus's perspective, but from the perspective of those who are his advisors and in close proximity to him. What are the main themes? Well, really, it's about Horus just after he's become War Master. Another issue that's discussed is compliance, and it is shown for what it is, a subjugation of a planet. Grim dark nature of the 31st millennium being what it is, when an army of post-humans arrive in orbit, they really give you two choices. Join the Imperium, recognise the Emperor is the leader of mankind, or die, and the survivors get to join instead. It's horrific. Humans versus Astartes is not a fair fight, and the full force of a legion is overwhelming. Compliance is not only witnessed, but discussed from a moral standpoint from the legionaries, particularly Loken, and Terra's perspective. They really don't see any other way of dealing with issues other than to bash planets over the head who don't agree with them, and then carry on conquering the galaxy. Finally, the nature of divinity is discussed throughout the book. There are clear and present cracks in humanity's combined culture, with divisions beneath the surface regarding the nature of the Emperor as a god and even of Horus. There are also sections which demonstrate the surprising extent of humanity's naivety around the warp and chaos, and their pretty much complete lack of knowledge. Who are the main characters? The main character is arguably Loken. He'll become one of the most defining characters for the next couple of books, and is very significant in this one. There are others as well, but he is the principal character that is followed throughout the book. He is a prime example of what a Lunar Wolf should be. Proud, competent, and straight as an arrow. He is also inquisitive and investigative, often seen to question the nature of things and gain an understanding of the universe. He's reflective and philosophical, but quiet and confident while doing so. He's also quick to admit fault or error. Ezekiel Abaddon features throughout the book as well. Pre-heresy, he's not necessarily a nice man, but then why would he be? He's first captain of the best, in inverted commas, legion. He's fierce, competitive, and forceful. He's also loyal and inspirational. All the characteristics that will lead him to one day be master of the Black Legion are shown, but often in a positive aspect. Shows you the line between greatness and really quite an evil force that might tear the galaxy in half are quite small. Erebus. If ever there was a time machine needed to be invented and go and get rid of one person, it's Erebus. I'd like to put forward an argument that Erebus influences the course of humanity more than any other Primarch, and perhaps even more than the Emperor. This is nothing short of phenomenal. He's scheming and plotting, and surprisingly, a sword master, something that's often overlooked in the canon. It could be perhaps that since the book, the details have faded into obscurity, more because of the way he's viewed as a low-key trickster-type character. Other characters that are mentioned, such as Kirill Sinderman and Mercedes Olaton, who are both iterators, effectively galactic news reporters, are key characters in the plot. While initially they're easy to overlook because they're not post-human, they play key roles in the development of the lore, and Sanguinius appears and the affection that he and Horus share is shown. And other very well-known characters such as Lucius and Eidolon played roles in the book. So overall, how is the book portrayed? What's good about it? The representation of Horus is awesome. He is such a good guy and really well represented what a Primarch should be and what the first among equals should be. And I remember thinking 20 years ago how much it sucks that he's going to be a bad guy. And I thought it again reading this book. Abaddon, as a goodie, he's brilliant as well. Sure, he has a bad temper, but the makeup of a hero is there, and his undertones that are going to see him slide to darkness are also there as well. The naive nature of mankind is evident, and so is the fact that the Emperor has a plan. But Horus is in some capacities feeling the pressure on him to make sure that he lives up to expectations. It's difficult to criticise the writing, however, I think some elements will appeal to some readers more than others. Some areas of the writing are not fully developed. This is intentional in some areas, such as the relationship between Horus and Sanguinius, giving future authors the ability to write the Lord of the Blood Angels in their own way. Also, a lot of the concepts are not fully developed yet, but I feel this is for the same reason. Other areas, such as the warfare of the Astartes, is not fully developed, and in comparison to future books, is not as good as it will become, and I feel this was a bit clear. That's not to say that combat is not good, but other books just do it so well. This is also not an action book. It is a book about Horus which has action in it, and this may influence some readers' decision over whether they want to read the book or not. Overall, as a new reader in the Horus Heresy series, it's actually quite difficult to place this book. Horus is awe-inspiring. That alone makes it a very high placement as worth reading. But it is not non-stop action, and it is not one of the pivotal moments in the 30k universe. What stops it from being higher? Probably because I know about the future books. I would counter that with the Avengers analogy, however, as Endgame is only as good as it is because you've seen all the other films. Therefore, considering there are 50 plus more books, it really has to have a high rating just because of Horus, Abaddon, and the fact that this is the start of their fall to darkness. So, it's getting 7 Crusader seals of approval. It needs to be read. Moving on to a more detailed look at some of the chapters here. Those who don't want spoilers, you want to leave the video now. The book is broken into 3 main segments. Compliance on a planet in which Horus slays the Emperor, not the real Emperor, but a false one. It quickly moves to Loken, the captain who led the charge, to speak and become a member of the Mournival, a kind of political body of 4 captains which offer alternative thoughts to the War Master and bring him intelligence. Horus also uses them to voice opinions that he may not be able to himself. A good action sequence at the start makes way to the politics of the 30th millennium, while Loken is a good medium to show what the War Master is like. A political genius who is also a Primarch. So, a giant who is above average at squishing folk. In the next segment, we visit Murder, the planet full of mega-arachnids. This is more of an action sequence with less politics in it, but we don't get so much story on the actual mega-arachnids though. Or do we actually find out what happens to them after the war? Before we move on to the Interrex. Now, the Interrex are the humans we wish we were in the 40th millennium. They know all about chaos, They're very wise to its tricks. They're friends with the Aldari, and they're even friends with other Xenos species. They get a little bit more like the Mass Effect universe, where everyone gets on in one happy, friendly universe, all ready to fight a big army who might turn up from the intergalactic fringe one day and try and eat everybody. Unfortunately, douchebag Erebus ruins it for everyone, and a big war starts. To my knowledge, we actually never see this war. It's never written down, and it's never in any of the lore. I feel we all know how it ends, but it just seems to have been kind of papered only, because what's going to happen? There's going to be a big war, everyone dies, and the War Master wins. The War Master ends the book deeply disappointed that that's what's happened. There are also a few really quite nice moments in the book. The first big thing that kind of came out for me, the Emperor has a plan. He's gone back to Terra. Horus even hypothesizes what this plan is, and with a good degree of accuracy. He is a genius after all. He doesn't know about the webway and what the Master of Mankind's exact intent is, but he does know that it's something to do with the reliance on the warp. He also knows about demons and entities in the warp that exist. He knows they're there. He doesn't know the extent that they're there, but he knows about them. There are also multiple instances that, since it's been 17 years since I read the book, I'd simply forgotten about or not registered as important at the time. Characters such as Kirill Sinderman and Mercedes Olaton. Both are excellent in this book and a counterpoint to the Astartes. Both play pivotal roles in the future of the series and are both in the Siege of Terra series. Kirill Sinderman is an incredible influence on mankind, and I think someone that was very easy to overlook as perhaps someone that wasn't going to be very important, because at this time, he spends most of the book in the library. They're very easy to forget about. Loken is a strong counterpoint in terms of morality. He's the character who's the pure goody. In many aspects, he's aware that the actions of the Astartes could be deemed as being wrong. Perhaps the Great Crusade is wrong after all. But really, necessity outweighs the situation. Even Horus shows this to an extent as it's reaching the end of the Crusade and has the idea of accepting an alien race, although this is perhaps going to be frowned upon, and many of his advisors are suggesting that that might not be a good idea. This being shown through the Interrex. Now, Horus never actually finds out if he would have got the Emperor's blessing on this, because obviously there's a big war and it all goes a little bit wrong. Samus. Oh dear, Samus. I did not realise that this guy was going to appear as often as he did. He is the first demon to potentially possess an Astartes against their will, almost definitely against their will. Now, we can't prove this. Maybe it's before the word bearers go into the Eye of Terror. I don't think it is, but I'm pretty sure he is one of the first possessions of an Astartes. Oh, how he will return to haunt us in future books. Keep an eye out for him. And Horus really does come across well. As the first time that a Primarch is written about on paper, Dan Abnett does a brilliant job. Horus is trying to stay true to the Emperor, but also accepts his responsibility. It's disappointing that he doesn't really fight, and Sanguinius doesn't do much, but I get it. I think it was fair enough. Finally, there's one monumental moment above everything else. One line in which Loken is pondering the future, and a ponder he does have. He pictures two deaths for himself that he may experience. One of these deaths is one in which he dies alone, far from his comrades and his legion, from a cruel wound on a nameless rock, passing into memory as smoke. And we should all know the name of that rock. And the second death, in some last stand against an unknown foe, he would be standing at the Emperor's side. Horus would of course be there. Loken would battle and die, and perhaps even Horus would die to save the Emperor at the last. This battle would become ingrained in the minds of men and become a cornerstone of all that would come afterwards. Considering Horus and the Emperor are about to meet in the End and the Death too, and that book's out later next year, and Loken has just teleported aboard the Vengeful Spirit. I will let you think for yourself what it could mean and just how far ahead Dan Abnett has been planning. Because remember, Loken was there the day that Horus slew the Emperor. So 17 years on, Horus is a big damn hero. Loken is a by-the-book philosopher. Kirill Sinderman's actually quite cool, and the Emperor did have a plan all along. It's just that some sneaky Erebus messed it up for everyone. Erebus is really annoying and should have been stopped by the Eldari. I don't know why they didn't fish him out and kill him. He should have been someone they put some time and effort into. If I'm going to give this series validity, I have to say there is other stuff to read that's better than this. If nothing is taking your fancy right now, it was a very happy trip down memory lane, but just covering the things that I've covered now make it almost perhaps not worth the read. That said, Iron Man 1, not that good a film, but from time to time, I like watching it. It's a bit pants, but I love it. I have to say, Horus Rising, 5 Crusader seals, happy wonder down memory lane. There's better things to be rereading. Thanks for listening. Leave a like, leave a subscribe. What did you like? What do you think I should be including in these reviews? Thanks for your time. Bye.